And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Thursday, May 16th, and this outlook will be for Friday into Saturday. And as of this Thursday, we're watching a couple of different features. There's a weaker low that's going to be tracking across the lower Gulf and continue to weaken on Friday. And back far to the northwest, we have another low coming in off of the Asia mainland along the Kamchatka coast, and that low is going to head southeastward, passing between St. Matthew and St. Paul, and then crossing the Alaska Peninsula on Saturday morning before re-emerging into the Gulf, which will spread more precipitation, breezy conditions, and rain up into the Gulf here this weekend. But leading up to that, we have MVFR conditions along the Gulf Coast over much of the Gulf. It could be a few pockets of IFR down around areas like Merrill and Lake Clark passes down in here, northern portion of the Alaska Peninsula to outside there of Kuskokwim Bay. Also IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, areas of the North Slope, and then out here, especially central Aleutians. Friday afternoon, we do have some residual moisture up here in areas of the interior that with the daytime heating, afternoon, evening hours, we could see some scattered showers and thunderstorms pop up. Nothing particularly heavy, but be aware of those cumulus buildups here across central, east central areas, 40-mile gold country up the Tanana Valley, lower Yukon Flats. Otherwise, MVFR conditions continuing across much of the Panhandle and out over the Gulf for Friday afternoon with a band of IFR conditions. There's going to be snow and rain pushing southeastward with that low crossing the central bearing. So IFR conditions will exist St. Matthew through the Pribilof Islands into the areas of the eastern Aleutians. And for Saturday morning, we expect MVFR conditions across the Panhandle with pockets of IFR along the intercoastal mountains there. Far north, IFR across a good portion of the North Slope and Arctic coast, and then we find again a band of IFR conditions from St. Matthew down to especially east of the Pribilofs outside of Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays into the Alaska Peninsula. And then for Saturday afternoon, this low that will have crossed here through the lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula and re-emerged North Pacific into the Southwest Gulf. So we'll see areas of precipitation, breezier conditions that will eventually spread east-northeastward along the Gulf into the Panhandle as we go through Sunday. But with the daytime heating Saturday afternoon, again in the afternoon and evening hours, we could see some scattered showers and thunderstorms from along the south slopes here of the central and eastern Brooks Range down to near Fairbanks and up the Tanana River Valley and around the 40-mile gold country, cumulus buildups, and as I said, some scattered showers and isolated storms. So Anatuvik Pass should generally stay MVFR on Friday. Same thing, Adigan Pass there. And then as we drop down along the western arm of the Alaska Range, IFR conditions early at Lake Clark and Merrill becoming MVFR. Rainy Pass, generally MVFR. Can't rule out a little IFR there, just maybe just south of the pass there in the morning. Windy Pass, MVFR becoming VFR. And Isabel Pass on over toward Metasta Pass, generally VFR conditions throughout the day Friday. But again, later in the afternoon and evening, there could be some cumulus buildups with some scattered showers and thunderstorms as you cross over north of the Alaska Range. And as we go across the Copper River Basin, generally VFR conditions there at Tanita. And it's looking like Portage will be in MVFR conditions in the morning, then give way to VFR conditions for the afternoon. And in the northern Panhandle at Chilkoot and White, we expect VFR conditions early in the day, Friday becoming MVFR. And looking at the freezing levels, the surface freezing line does bump upward. Temperatures staying above freezing now through the areas of the Yukon, middle, upper Yukon Valley and up the Tanana Valley. We also see freezing line along the Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle. Freezing levels aloft do come upwards of 4,000 and 6,000 feet over the eastern, east-central interior into northwest Canada. And then behind me, because of the low that's coming down across the central bearing, we find southwest of there, freezing levels rise up 6,000 to 8,000 feet along the central Aleutians, and then further south and west in there above 10,000 feet. And with that system, the greatest threat for icing Friday out here over the Bering, including St. Matthew, Nunavik Island, these areas above 2,000 feet south of the Alaska Peninsula, and eastern Aleutians above 4,000 feet. We also, with that one weaker low that's going to work its way eastward and further weaken on Friday, early on in the day there could be some pockets of moisture above 4,000 feet here back toward Middle Cook Inlet in some of the cloud cover. And then we're looking at the upper level jet stream, 30,000 feet. We have a little high circulation here along the Elcan border. We have a trough of low pressure, a little stronger jet core to 110 knots, diving down toward the central Aleutians across the southwest Bering. At 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, you see that circulation clearly in mid-levels, and the strongest wind core is just to the south west of the center. And the Gulf, relatively quiet conditions, belt of winds south of there in the North Pacific, 30, 40 knots, and then along the southwest coast, pushing up toward the lower Yukon, Kuskokwim, deltas 30 to 35 knot winds from the southwest. And then finally, as we bring things down to 3,000 feet, pretty quiet winds, nothing of any note across the mainland interior. Southeast winds relatively tame there as well. But we have the low circulation. They'll be crossing the central Bering Sea, and around it we find winds at 3,000 feet on the order of 25 to 35 knots. And so as far as any turbulence issues on Friday, there could be some moderate turbulence here on the lower end of the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians. We find isolated moderate turbulence extending out back toward the central Aleutians surface to 4,000 feet, and then some isolated moderate turbulence will be possible on Friday, surface to 3,000 feet around, especially south side of St. Lawrence Island, St. Matthew, St. Paul, and in and around Etolan Strait and Nunavik Island.